can we press pause for just 1 minute and talk about probate? Which, and it could
Sure.
vary by state. But essentially, my understanding is it's the court system dealing with your whatever assets are left over, and then so
Mhm.
really what you're doing by not having a plan is really putting trust in the court system that they are going to accurately understand the situation and make some sort of judgment that is in the best interest of someone, right? They're
Mhm.
not necessarily beholden to your best wishes or what, because the court system doesn't know you. Is that
Of
generally
course.
the correct understanding of kind of like in a broad view how the probate system works?
Conceptually speaking, yes, sir. Yeah, so it will, if there's no good planning and legal documentation stating how we want these things to happen or who gets these assets or this, that, or the other, then it'll be up to a judge in the court system to decide who gets what and how it's split and all those things, which, to your
Hmm.
point, may or may not be. Like, let's say, God forbid, one of your children are, great, upstanding, responsible, wise person. And let's say you have a child that, is not that, right?
Hmm.
Whether they have substance abuse issues or whatever.
Sure.
Well, the court generally, isn't going to care about those things. They're just going to say, hey, it doesn't, it's these are your two closest living relatives, and these things are going to be split 50-50 this way. And maybe that right there just signed your child with substance abuse. Maybe it just signed their death warrant because guess how they're going to
Hmm.
spend that money.
Sure.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
not going to be on getting help, probably, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
um, they're going to make their drug dealer's day. So that's not what anybody wants. So yeah, I mean, and probate can drag on for sometimes years. I
Hmm.
mean, in the best instances, it's usually at least several months, but sometimes it can take years and all these things. And then somebody's got to be in charge of it and kind of
Hmm.
deal with everything. And it's going to be a part time job at least for that person, and it's going to be a huge headache. And then people start fighting and people start arguing, and there's been a lot of relationships ruined between family members because of the probate process, which
Yeah.
again, I would assume if the person knew that this would play out the way it did, that they would do anything to make sure that that did not happen.
Yeah, to keep it out of that process. I mean, no matter who you are, you've heard some story about probate, right? And I don't know that I've ever heard a story where it went super well, where everyone was happy with the process and it worked out just the right way. That's never the way it works out, because that's not the court's mission, right? The court's mission is to take the stuff, disperse the stuff. That's what it is. That's what it's for. Not, to your point. All right, let's dig into the siblings now. Who would use the money in the right way, or what were the wishes? No, the course has no care about that. And also, unfortunately, with multiple siblings, it could end up to be the sibling that has maybe the most financial resources to hire the lawyer to follow the thing all the way through, might be able to sway that process too.
Yeah, and I
It's
hate to be cynical about it, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I was just going to say maybe not never. It's hardly ever a good process.
Well, and I've never really thought of it that way, but now that you say that, yeah, I deal with that. I don't want to say a lot, but more often than anybody should. And yeah, there's never really any positive emotions attached to the probate process. Um,
No.
but I hate to be cynical about it, but it's not in any of the attorneys involved with it. It's not in their best interest to make it go smoothly or quickly or any of that. Again, I hate to be
Sure.
cynical, but I mean they're generally charging by the hour, and the court gets paid every time you go to court, and like it's not really in the legal system's interest to make sure that this goes smoothly or quickly or any of that. It's
Sure.
quite honestly in their interest to kind of drag it out and spend as much time on it as they can and kind of rack up those billable hours. So, and again, I'm not painting with a broad brushstroke,
Sure.
right? There's some really great attorneys who always have
Agreed.
the client's interest at heart. But I mean, if you're looking at it from just a human motivation standpoint, if you're charging by the hour, it's in your best interest to have as many hours
Mm.
involved with it as you can.
Yeah, it could be. And this really kind of falls into the, hope for the best, plan for the worst. I hope it goes super smooth. I hope everyone gets along and it is a breeze of a process. But just in case it isn't, let's have a plan for what if, throw this monkey wrench in. What if this and that and the other? I wanted to press pause for a second and talk about probate because I feel like a lot of people talk about it without getting, and it can vary. Your experience may vary with the system and the process, but I think it's good to understand in general terms that's not something you want to put people through, because to our earlier point, you're trying to set these people up for success. Like that's why we do it. Like no one, maybe not no one, hardly anyone throws themselves into this because they just love the grind or they just love, there's usually a higher motivation. Want to provide for my family,
Mm-hmm.
want to provide a better future, want to do better to something. And the probate process doesn't really fit any of those wants or desires. But that was the point I wanted to drive home, I guess.
No, and you're 100% right, and I'm glad you did that because I'm talking about probate, assuming that everybody knows what that is when a lot of people don't.
Sure.
But to your point, especially for business owners, and again, just as few times as I've had people come to me with their estate planning done, I don't know if I've ever had a business owner come to me with what I would consider a good, thorough, well thought out, legally binding succession plan for what happens to the business if something were to happen to them. And if you're a business owner, presumably a big chunk or the majority of your wealth is in your business. That you've poured a lot of blood, sweat, tears, you've made a lot of sacrifices, you've done a lot of things to grow this business to where it is today. And I'm assuming that you would like your family to be able to capture this value that you've created upon your passing. And the
Absolutely.
problem with that is that a lot of business owners, um, I hear a lot of people say, "Oh, if I die, the business will still run, and my family will continue to be able to draw an income from it." I'm like, "All right, do me a favor. Take the next 6 months off." And when I say off, I mean off, off. No phone,
Unplug.
email, text, none of that. Like you are dead to the business for the next 6 months. Does that idea make you sweaty? Because if it does, then that means that maybe the business, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Most businesses are way too overly reliant upon the business owner, and it may be able to survive, but it probably
Sure. Of
won't thrive in your absence. Now, there's certainly exceptions to that rule, right? There's some people that
course.
that they're definitely the exception. Um, or they'll say, well, my wife or whatever should be able to sell the business upon my passing. And it's like, all right, well, again, back to the problem of most business owners, the business is way too overly reliant upon them and they don't have a lot of good systems and processes in place. They might not have the team in place that they want. So again, without them, the business is not going to thrive. It might
Yeah.
survive, but it won't thrive. And so I could not tell you how many times that um, give you a good example. I have a client who a couple years ago bought a business that was, in his same industry that he's in. So he bought another business and folded it in. And so as we were talking about it, and so this was, I think, just not long before he started working with us. And as we were talking about it, he was like, "Man, I got a hell of a deal on it." Sorry for the language. He's like, "I got a hell of a deal on it." And he was like, "Yeah, what happened is I approached this guy before about it, wasn't interested in selling, and then he passed away, and he's like, I got it for like a third of what it was worth
Mm.
because without him there, it just was not worth nearly as much, and it was, I mean, basically even that third was probably better than the wife would have got." elsewhere. So, yeah, I just could not tell you how often that happens. So,
Yeah.
um, the business value, anyways, we got to have a good plan for the business,
Yeah.
some sort of contingency plan. We're all going to exit our business at some point, at some way. We
Yep.
all hope it's going to go the way that we want it to go, and I hope it does too. But we need to have a plan for what happens if it doesn't go the way that we want it to go.
Sure. Absolutely.